was super comfortable over there. Like, oh, I can just sit over here the whole time. But over there on the steps, there's this weird green stuff that's stuck to the carpet.
I know where that came from.
I do too. I do too. So this is the very first time that I've ever spoken on a backwards night, so this is kind of weird for me. Usually I have tons of time to kind of like get really, really nervous, but I didn't have that kind of time tonight, so that's kind of a good thing. It's interesting though, and I hoped that this wouldn't happen. I really hoped it wouldn't, but it seems like every time I speak at Wildside, Vincent, please don't hit somebody. Okay, let's just not do that. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I think you're supposed to speak backwards for backward time.
No. I could, maybe at the end. Maybe at the end. Well, you know, I'm just going to sit for a minute. You know what I want you guys all to do? I want you to stand up. Everybody, stand up. I want you to jump up and down 5 times. For real. Now sit down. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, sit down. The thing with... Can you guys move down so everybody has a seat? Thanks. You guys are sharing a chair. That's not something that we do outside, so please don't do that. Thank you. The thing with backwards night that I've noticed in my long tenure here is you guys haven't had the chance to get the wiggles out of it yet. So it's a little bit, that's why I had to jump around a bit. Anyway, one thing I didn't expect to happen that actually did, I got sick, and I didn't expect that. On Monday night, I had a scratchy throat, and I thought, okay, it's probably because Josh got his bees. I think I told you about that. And I was looking at that thinking that was a beehive over there, but it's not. I'm just like so like the whole bee thing. Anyway, I thought it was just because of being outside. You know, thank you, Zayna, for being outside, and I didn't really think much of it. Then Tuesday I went to work, went to went to Refuge, and I'm sitting at Refuge, right? And every time I swallow, it's like knives across my throat. I'm thinking, oh, lovely, this is wonderful. So I would get up and get water and everything. So all that to say, I have lots of water. And if I start to cough, sometimes I cough and cough and cough and cough and cough and seem like I'm dying, but I'm not. Because I had pneumonia once, and I've never been the same since, so it's kind of weird. Kind of weird. Who here likes to build stuff? Oh, okay. Vincent, what do you like to build? Shh, you guys, I want you guys to be able to hear everybody. Vincent, what do you like to build? Everything. Marissa, did you raise your hand yet? What do you like to build, Marissa?
I like to build
Crafting things. Search. You build. I don't even know what that means. Build book. Okay, that sounds fun. Jonah. Legos and Minecraft, because Minecraft is a building game. Yes, I know that very, very well. Cheyenne. Model cars. Cool. Daniel. Auto mechanics. Are you just holding up the hashtag for me, Zayna, the whole time? It's funny because people like to build stuff all the time. Nolan, what do you like to build? Okay, I don't understand that, but that's okay. That's not something I'm well versed in. Not at all. So, okay, Josh used to get Legos all the time, right? Because he loved Legos. He still loves Legos. And when he was little, he would, most of the time, he would ask for the biggest set that they made. And that's just kind of how it worked. So when you buy the big set, have any of you guys got the big set of Legos that has a bajillion bags in it? Okay, so you buy this, or even the ones that are kind of small that Josh likes to use now, build now. You open the box, and there's all these little tiny bags that are numbered in there. And the numbers correspond to, I think, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, to the instructions and how you build it. And it's not just a sheet of instructions. Vincent, please don't hit people. Or their fidgety thing. Please don't do that. Please don't. Thank you. Anyway, instructions. So the instructions in a Lego really, if they're a really complicated one, aren't just a sheet of instructions. It's a bound book of instructions. And if you follow all those instructions from opening bag number 1 all the way to opening bag number however many bags there are, you're going to end up with whatever is on the front of that box. If you're wanting to build a robot, you're going to end up with a robot most likely. If you want to build a car, you're going to end up building a car. That's how it works, unless you do something a little rogue and make it a little bit weird. And that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. I I don't really like to build things. And that's never been really one of my things. My dad built models when I was growing up. Now he builds these really big ships that are really big and makes like little ammunition out of rice. It's just weird. But he does do that. I don't like to build things, but I like to make things. So I like to cook. It's something that I really, really like to do. Does anybody else like to cook in here?
No.
Like bake or cook? When I first got married 32 years ago, I was a terrible cook. Huh? Steve, I was a terrible cook. He's not going to answer me. There was one morning where he asked for pancakes. See, he's laughing. He asked for... No, let me tell the story because it's so awkward. It's so awkward. He wanted pancakes for breakfast, and I'd never made pancakes before. And so I didn't know what I was doing, and so I make the pancake batter and everything, and then I pour like an inch of oil in a pan. And at first, it's like, oh no, not that. And so I'm like making donuts instead of pancakes. I thought it was just fine, but then, he said, no, you shouldn't do it that way, and I got my feelings hurt, and there was all kinds of that. But anyway, I like to cook, but I didn't always cook as well as I cook now. Now, if I'm cooking something right now, I generally don't follow a recipe. Usually I make the same things over and over again, and I don't follow many recipes anymore. Unless it's something new, and then I'll follow the recipe. Now, if I don't feel like cooking, this happens from time to time. Now, the kids are just laughing. So, okay, I don't feel like cooking, so I make the announcement. It's like a literal announcement. I'm not cooking dinner. And there's sadness and everything on everyone's face or whatever. So they realize they're going to cook dinner, and they'll come to me and say, so how much garlic powder goes in this recipe? Josh, what do I always say every time? A good bit. A good bit is the most vague measurement you could ever have, ever. But I use it all the time. How much salt? A good bit. How much pepper? A good bit. Is it the same amount for everything? No, just a good bit, depending on what it is. It's ridiculous, but that's what I do. Because I just know how, there's just some things that I make all the time, so I know how to do it. The one exception is candy. When I make candy, I follow the recipe to the letter. I do it exactly the way it says. Because when you make candy, what it is chemistry. It's like a chemistry experiment in school. You have the molecules in the sugar, and then you have the molecules in the water. You put them together, they heat, they do all kinds of weird chemical action, and they make candy. It's really cool. You have to be exact in your measurements and exact in the way you cook it. It will tell you, don't stir it here, stir it here. Take a wet brush and go on the side of the pan here. And if you don't do it that way, it doesn't work out. So when I make candy, I always do it exactly how the recipe says, because I like the candy to turn out. I don't like to waste ingredients. The only time it doesn't work is when it's raining. You can't make candy when it's raining. I didn't know that. I made candy one day when it was raining and couldn't figure out, couldn't figure out why it didn't work. What it is because candy making is chemistry, when it's damp outside, it's really moist outside. So when candy's done cooking, the steam and everything evaporates because it's super hot. It's like molten, and if you get hot candy on you, it burns really, really, really bad. Worse than hot. And what's the worst thing is if you get it on your hand and you realize it's burning and you rub it really quick, that means you take all the skin off your hand too. Done that. Yeah, that was bad. Anyway, so when you make, like you want to make like suckers or Jolly Ranchers, that kind of thing, you boil it, you do everything that you're supposed to do to it, unless it's raining. When it rains, the moisture in the air, it's the weirdest thing. Instead of evaporating out of the candy, it goes back in. The heat of the candy and the moisture in the air draws the moisture back into the candy mixture, and it makes it do weird stuff. Instead of clear candy, like if you're going to make suckers or Jolly Ranchers, it's going to have little flecks of weird crystals that taste funny in it. And then if you're making like peanut brittle or something like that, instead of being kind of a clearish look, it looks like white and it's gritty. And so you always know that you shouldn't make candy. Now I always know. But you shouldn't make candy on a day that's raining. It actually says it in a lot of cookbooks, but sometimes I don't read the small print because I think I know better. But I don't really do that anymore. I don't really make candy when it's raining anymore. Or meringue, I think it's a little cuter. I was going to. Honestly, I was. If I wouldn't have gotten sick, I was going to make candy and bring it in. I'll bring it maybe next week. Anyway, all that to say, Sometimes you do everything the way you're supposed to do it. You follow every single instruction like you're making candy. And then an outside force like the weather messes it all up. It doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to. Interestingly enough, that happens when you're sharing Jesus with people. You can do everything right, and it doesn't work. Tonight we're going to talk about how you deal with that. How you deal with the feelings that you get when things don't go quite the way you think they should when you share Jesus with people. I'm going to pray really quick and then get a drink of water, and then we're going to dive in. God, I thank you. I thank you somehow for illness. And I just ask that you would be with me and speak through me and help me to not think of the different things that are bothering me at the moment as far as my body being kind of not feeling well. I just ask that you would help the students to understand what it is that you are trying to say through me. And I thank you for this opportunity, Lord, that you have so graciously given to me to be able to share your word with folks that are just so gosh darn important to me. Lord, I love you, and I just pray all this in the strong name of Jesus and all God's people said. Amen. Tonight we're going to do things a little different. I teach differently for different ways. The last couple of weeks we've had fill-ins where it's been kind of like sentences, and I've said what the fill-ins are. Tonight the fill-ins are specifically verses. So what you guys are going to see behind me is the actual verse or passage that I'm going to read. You can follow along in the Bibles if you want to. The page numbers are going to be up there. And I'll also tell you what the page numbers are. When I get to the place that's the fill-in, I will tell you. And so you can fill them in if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to, but you're more than welcome to. I'm going to go in two completely different places in the Bible tonight. We're going to go in the Old Testament for a little bit, and we're going to go in the New Testament for a little bit. I thought it was kind of interesting as I studied this and researched this for a long time to try and figure out what it was God wanted to say. I didn't really know and have a clear picture of where I needed to look. And then finally, it just, as God is just so perfect and awesome, it just kind of fell into place. So the first thing that we're going to look at tonight is a book in the Bible that I always pronounced wrong until about 2 years ago. I used to call it Habakkuk. I don't know why I called it that. I think somebody must have told me that's what it was called when I was growing up, and so I just called it that. Now, once the kids went to Jessup and they got all the fancy names and got it all figured out, it's Habakkuk, right? Is that right? Megan's like, yeah, you did it. So I like to tell people who I'm talking about. This guy was a prophet, a minor prophet. He's called a minor prophet. There are minor prophets at the end of the Old Testament. So I figured, okay, I don't know anything about him. I know how to pronounce his name incorrectly, but that's about all I know. So I'm going to research this so you guys can know, and I can know, and we can all be in the know. There's no information on him. We don't know where he was born. We don't know how old he was. We don't know where he lived. We don't know anything except God used him to speak to people, speak through him to people. So we will look at that, and it's up there already. Have you guys ever shared Jesus with somebody before? Have any of you ever done that? Did it go well? How did you feel?
Very proud.
Pretty proud of yourself. That's awesome, because you should feel really proud of yourself. I've done it a couple times at least, and when it doesn't go well, I get like this really super bummed out feeling. Like I didn't do it right. Like they didn't want to come to church, so I must have screwed it up. I must have completely made a mistake in something that I said, because they're not interested in coming to church with me. So what did I do wrong? I picked this passage because it talks about when things go wrong, what are we supposed to do? You guys have been able to read it behind me. I'll go ahead and read it out loud. It's on page 93. It's been weird to use this little Bible because it's kind of cool. I never had actually opened them up before, and because I have this one here, but it's pretty cool. I think I'll probably keep it on my desk. I like it that much. So he says, even though the fig trees have no blossoms. Why is that even important? What happens? Because people like figs. What is it about a blossom that's important, Cheyenne? The blossoms turn into figs. When you have a fruit-bearing tree, you get a flower, okay? That's what happens. Flower comes out. Bees come in. Bees chased me down the backyard today. And they totally did. The bees come in, pollinate it, and enable that tree to produce fruit. Okay? So even though the fig trees have no blossoms, and there are no grapes on the vines, so you have two places that there should be something. Even though the olive crop fails, and the fields lie empty and barren. What do you guys think barren means? Lifeless, empty, nothing, just nothing. Okay, just nothing. What was that? Wait, what? What happened?
They said like nothing on my soul.
Okay, I've honestly said that before, so I've said that as a joke before. Okay. I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to ask you guys a question. Why do you think it's always stuff about plants? Why in the Bible is it always stuff about plants? No one. Because they're cool. Okay. Because Adam, okay, search. Because they're poisonous. Jonah. Okay, well, not necessarily, but the reason that they always use plants as examples is that's what people knew. If the Bible was written right now, right now, there'd be things that you guys knew, things that you guys are comfortable with, things that you guys understand. So the Bible's written with the context of people that farm, who have plants, who have crops, who have sheep, who have animals. That's why it's like that. So we're going to continue on. Even though, this is the part I don't like, even though the flocks die in the fields, which would be very sad to have just like a flock and then just have it die. What's a flock? It's a whole bunch of sheep. That's right, it could be goats too. I don't think it could be cows though. That's a herd. And the cattle barns are empty, so there's no cattle in there. So this is a sad state of affairs. Would you guys agree? Yeah. It's pretty sad. But then what does he say? Yeah. He says, "Yet I will rejoice in the Lord." This is your filling. "Yet I will rejoice in the Lord, and I will be joyful in the God of my salvation." Why is that important today, right now, with what we're talking about? Why on earth would I pick a passage that talks about plants not being around and cows being not in the barn and sheep being dead? Jonah.
Plants are actually what keep everything alive.
Yeah, plants do keep everything alive. Go ahead, finish what you're saying, Jonah.
Plants are all without plants, we would all perish.
That is true. Without plants, we would all perish. That is true. Oh my gosh, you guys are so funny. It's like there's so many different answers to all the questions. Okay. Vincent. I'm going to try not to laugh. I'm really going to try not to laugh. Why do you think those last two verses are important? Why would we care about that? Why? Nobody know? I will tell you. Because I'm cool like that. Oops. Even when you guys share about Jesus, okay? When you talk to people about Jesus and it doesn't go well, because one of you said that it didn't go well, right? Yeah. You need to be happy and rejoice for the fact that God gave you the opportunity. There was an opportunity there. He opened a door for you to talk to somebody about Him. You need to be happy with that. You need to thank Him for that. And that's really hard because sometimes when you talk to people about Jesus and they're kind of weird, because they can be kind of weird, it's hard to thank God for people being weird to you. That's a very strange thing to do. We're going to jump ahead into the next passage. It's in the Old Testament. I'm sorry. Jordan coached me on how to do that, and I totally didn't do it the right way. But I didn't die. I know, right? I didn't die. That's a plus. Yeah, right? And I'll be able to cook dinner tomorrow and it won't be pancakes. Right? Or if it is pancakes, they'll be the right kind. Okay, we're jumping into the book of 1 Corinthians. It's written by a guy named Paul. Do you guys know who Paul is? Vincent. He's Paul. His name's Paul because his name's Paul. That was a really awesome answer. Jonah. Really? Do you really know the answer? Jonah.
When we first read Paul in the Bible, we didn't know his Saul.
Yes.
He also thought that
He was a guy named Saul. That's right. He was born a Roman guy, and he liked to kill Christians. He didn't like Christians at all. He changed his mind. He had a Jesus, come to Jesus kind of thing on the road to Damascus is what it's called. Pardon me, sir? I think so, yeah, for a little bit. He's that one. That's the guy. So anyway, he started a lot of churches and talked to lots of different people about Jesus. This letter is to a church that was kind of messing up a little bit. It was a church in Corinth, which is near Greece. And they were kind of arguing a lot. They kind of wanted one person to be in charge, and then another person to be in charge, and another person to be in charge. And there was a lot of division. Not like long division, but just like, division like that. So we're going to pick it up in verse 5, I believe. Nope, yep, verse 5, just a few. Okay, so we've got two people that this passage talks about. One guy's named Apollos, and he's just a guy who also tells people about Jesus. So here we go. After all, who is Apollos? Who is Paul? We are only God's servants through whom you believed the good news. What's the good news, guys? It's God's word. All right. Jesus died on the cross for us. That's right. All right. I'm going to start again because I lost my place. After all, who is Apollos and who is Paul? We are only God's servants through whom you believed the good news. Each of us did the work that God gave us. I planted the seed in your hearts, and Apollos watered it. But it was God who made it grow. It's not important who does the planting or who does the watering. What's important is that God makes the seed grow. That's your fill-in. Read it again. It's not important who does the planting or who does the watering. What's important is God makes the seed grow. Again, Paul uses agriculture kind of examples. That's what people would have understood. If you have a pot of soil in your backyard, if you go to Walmart and you buy a terracotta pot, okay, from the garden center, and you buy a bag of dirt, and you dump that bag of dirt in that pot. You guys all tracking with me? So you go to Walmart, you buy your stuff. Okay, so you got this pot with the dirt, and then you water it. And then you water it the next day, and then you water it the day after that, and then you water it the day after that. What's going to happen to it?
Nothing.
Why?
Because there's no seed.
That's right. There's no seeds. The seeds are what's important. And sometimes when we talk to people about Jesus, all we're doing is planting a little seed in them. That's it. That sounds kind of weird, but that's all we're doing. We're just telling them maybe a little tiny bit. Maybe they can't handle a ton. Maybe they don't want to listen. But we just planted a little bit of a seed. And then later on, a couple years, a couple months, another day, we don't know, somebody else comes along and waters it. And then maybe somebody else. No, not at all. What happens is inside you when you're, let me give it what happened to me. When I was your age, I first learned about Jesus through like VBS. And my little brother was going to VBS, and I went along with him. And I was like, this is kind of weird. I don't really know what this is all about. This is strange. They're talking about Jesus. I know that he was born at Christmas time, and that was kind of what I knew. And that was it. And then a couple months later, I went to something else, and I got a little bit more information, and a little bit more information, and a little bit more information. And over time, I finally realized that I wanted to follow Jesus. And that's kind of how it is. When you share your faith, when you share Jesus with people, sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to. Because you want it to be perfect. You want the people to come to church with you automatically. You want them to be like, give me a Bible and I want to learn all about it. But sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes you share your faith with people and they make fun of you. Sometimes they talk behind your back. Sometimes they call you names because of what you believe in. Sometimes they don't want to talk to you because of what you believe in. But you have to remember that if you've been doing the different things that we've been talking about, you've been praying about this. You've been taking those opportunities to talk to people. So God's going to use you, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be all one at the same time. You're going to plant it, water it, God's going to make it grow, done. It's not always like that. In fact, it's pretty rare that it's like that. I can't think of one time that it's happened to me like that. You never know if you're the seed planter or the waterer. Usually, You can kind of know. If someone doesn't know anything about Jesus, they can figure you're the person that told them first. But it's really easy to get discouraged. And I want to tell you guys not to. Don't get discouraged. It really can be really, really hard to share your faith. It can. Because you're putting yourself out there. You're making yourself vulnerable to all different kinds of things. Because people can be mean. Friends can be mean. Friends can not want to be friends with you anymore because of what you say. What I want you to take away from this tonight is the thought for the week. And it is this. God knows what he's doing. Does he not? Yeah. Would you guys agree with me that God knows what he's doing? Okay. He is. And his timing is perfect. Would you agree with me on that? Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that, though. Sometimes things go kind of wonky and kind of weird, and you're thinking, why is this happening to me right now? This isn't fair. But God's timing is perfect. You just see it later on. So I encourage you guys to continue to tell people about God. And don't be discouraged if the process takes longer than you think it should. Because it's not about what we think or what we want. It's about what God's trying to do through us. I would pray. And I thank you for this evening. I thank you for all the things that you do for me. The direction that you give me. The gentle nudge back into place when I go a little astray. Lord, you're just so good to all of us, and I just ask that you would give a spirit of boldness to the students and the leaders as well, Lord, to step out in faith and share about you and talk about you and just be the people that you want us to. I thank you, God, for everything you do and for this amazing opportunity to talk to these kids who mean so much to me. I pray all of these things in the strong name of Jesus.